After a short break, the Darling in the Franxx anime series finally returns. It begins the second half of its first season with a brand new retooled intro and a very refreshing new tone. Everyone's going to die, aren't they? Let me just say that the last couple of weeks waiting for this episode of Darling in the Franxx have been excruciating, especially the way that the last episode ended with Hiro and Zero Two finally being reunited, Ichigo accepting their love, and then everything suddenly going to shit when a massive Klaxosaur hand just erupted from the earth and just squashed everything. I was so ready to see what was going to happen next, and it looks like they're going to be sweeping most of that under the rug, because after this big, ridiculous incident, Papa has decided to cut off all ties with the Franxx pilots. They're on their own. They don't have their caretakers, they only have small amounts of rations coming in, and no one is going to take care of them. Basically, they're going to be forced into a situation where they have to learn to do things themselves. And it's a really great plot point for the series, as the characters are officially going to become independent of Papa. I don't know if this is a plan of Dr. Franxx or the Illuminati-esque ape organization, but I can't wait to see how it's all going to play out. And this episode right here was certainly an emotional roller coaster. In fact, the entire tone almost changes completely, with Zero Two being completely happy to be with all of these people now, and they all get along, and everything's all happy and hunky-dory, and you're just waiting for that one moment where things are just going to go wrong. And eventually, of course they do, just not until the last couple seconds of the episode. But this one certainly delves into some pretty dark material, where it seems like the first half of Darling in the Franxx was dealing with sexual themes and being in relationships with people. This one is going to be going into all sorts of crazy disorders, like the fact that Futoshi is suffering from bulimia. Either that or he's so sick that he just can't keep food down. Or the fact that Ikuno seems to have some sort of weird borderline stalkerish relationship with Ichigo in this series. And yet, even with these disorderly overtones sort of shadowing the entire episode, this episode felt kind of nice. I don't know what it was, but it was great to finally see these characters just getting along finally. I mean, it's taken this long to actually happen, the second half of the series. It took them a long time just to get used to Hiro. Now that we're finally here with Zero Two, it feels really good. Even Ichigo is completely accepting of everything about her and her personality, and loves that she's bringing all of this great stuff to the group. She's basically making everybody come out of their shells, which I think is really impressive. Not only that, but there's also tons of juicy drama as well, like the fact that it's very obvious that Mitsuru and Kokoro kind of have a thing for one another. There's a scene where she actually gives him a haircut, which basically transforms him into time skip Mitsuru. But this is an important scene as she basically just kisses him outright. And this is basically a declaration of her feelings for him, but she's still incredibly confused by it, and it's all adorable and stupid and everything. But when I see it, I just can't help but feel bad for Futoshi, because one, he's obsessed with Kokoro, he absolutely loves her and would do anything for her, and the partner that he's with now pretty much doesn't want anything to do with him either, so he's kind of losing in almost every single directions, and he's sort of the punching bag of the episode, especially by the end. But what is really great about this entire sequence of events is that they all learn to become self-sufficient, and even realize that they can cook as well. They realize there's fish in the river, they catch them, and they cook them, and they make this whole big meal by reading these old cookbooks, and it's awesome. It's like they literally are growing up, and it's amazing too, because you gotta realize, these kids do things like pilot giant robots, but they're fascinated by things like chopping up vegetables or a freaking campfire. It's very, very strange how all of this is working, not to mention there is this dark element in the background where we realize that some of these characters are going through changes. There's a fan-servicey scene where Zero Two and the other girls are bathing in the river, and Zero Two is with Miku, and they start like playing fighting in the water, and then they have this like close-up shot of her hair, and some strands of it have turned completely white, which is very similar to some of the adults that we've actually seen in the series, especially those that live in those underground hive-like cities. And I'm not sure what this is hinting towards, but it's basically, it might as well just be a giant death flag for Miku at this point. In fact, I'd say a lot of their heads are on the chopping block, if only for the fact that everything was just so freaking schmaltzy and happy in this episode right here. But it does come to a head at the very end when, while they are having their meals, Romy has this big outburst on Futoshi for the fact that he knows that he's throwing up his food and not being able to keep anything down in an effort to lose weight. He gets really upset over the fact that he could be hurting himself and potentially others. That and the fact that he feels basically a little abandoned by Papa. He has been so obsessed with the concept of these guys from the beginning, and now his entire world has been completely challenged. Even before they eat the food, they don't even say a prayer or anything. They're becoming wholly independent in this moment. And it's all a part, I believe, of Dr. Franxx's plan. And I'm not sure if he's trying to go against the ape organization or Papa and the other fathers or anything, but I can't wait to see what his entire deal is going to be. But yeah, basically the episode ends in a really touching moment between Hero and 02 as they're getting ready for their nice, lovely future together. They'll be together always. That is until the next MacGuffin shows up to completely ruin everything, and that MacGuffin might very well be the Klaxosaur Princess. So what's the rundown on this episode of Darling in the Franxx? Things are at their most dire. After the massive Klaxosaur hand came out of the earth and destroyed almost everything, everything is just on lockdown. Supplies are limited, no power, no nothing, and these characters are thrown through the ringer. But again, it's all a part of some crazy, convoluted, Illuminati-esque plan by Dr. Franxx to see what these children are going to do in this situation. And in every challenge that they've had thus far, they've managed to conquer it. But a lot of crazy things are going to be happening in this arc, and a lot of that is teased in the brand new intro, which is mostly what I want to talk about, because there are some crazy shots in this intro hinting to some really weird developments, and a lot of it points to the fact that a lot of these characters are straight up probably just going to die. The final shot in particular of Hero and 02, she's saying something directly into his ear until suddenly she just disappears. Or how about the moment with this girl? What's the deal with her in the first place? There's a big scene in this episode where Papa and the other fathers are discussing the Klaxosaur Princess. And this could very well be this character right here. But the Klaxosaur Princess could also be 02, which could also mean that this other mysterious being could be the Klaxosaur Queen. I don't know what this is all about, but I'm guessing that the second half of the series, we're finally going to delve a little bit more into the mystery of the world, what the Klaxosaurs are, and why they're such a threat to humanity in the first place, and how they might even have something of a strong connection to them. And it might be because of Zero and Hero 2, they might be the ones who actually, end all of this. A perfect combination of human and Klaxosaur. Either that or it's all just a backdrop for all of the metaphors they love throwing at you in the show, which Darling in the Franxx has certainly excelled at. It is also worth mentioning the intro has the same song, but it is retooled slightly, and I have to admit, I like this version a lot more. Maybe it's just because the first one just didn't work for me, but still, I like the completely different color scheme in this one. When I think of the first intro, I think of red and pink. This one, I'm always going to think of blue, and just the very striking images of what could very well be either the Klaxosaur Princess or Queen, her invading forces, and of course that one shot of 02 hanging out in the giant Klaxosaur hands with the single angel wing. It's all so symbolic and perfect, but I really do love it, and it just got me really pumped up for what this season is ultimately going to deliver. And the ending of this episode is when things get crazy, because like I said, it all ends with this really nice moment with Hero and 02 embracing one another, and you can really tell that their relationship has come so far, and that they've worked so hard to not only preserve it, but to make it even stronger, and now it's going to be challenged by this brand new force which shows up at the end of the episode. It's implied that this brand new female Klaxosaur character, very similar to 02, is not only in the plantation, but not very far away either. Basically, the world of Darling in the Franxx is about to be completely shaken up, and I think it's exactly what the series needs to do. It's a reason it's become one of the biggest hits of this season, is it's kind of hard to predict in many points, especially because of how incredibly vague and mysterious the actual world itself is. But they're doing a great job of finally starting to bring it to the forefront, and most importantly, making me care about it and the fates of these characters, which just worked so well in this episode. So, equal parts charming, equal parts very disturbing and mysterious by the end. This is the beginning of something really special. It almost felt like kind of like a reboot within the very own series. I'm very pumped up for the next half of the season, and this was a pretty solid episode as well. Would I have liked to see a little more explanation and less vagueness? Sure, of course. But for what this episode was, it was a pretty solid return to the form, as well as sort of already getting ready to change things up. I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5. I really want to hear from you guys, though. That brand new intro with all the imagery and all the brand new things that they're teasing. I want to hear your thoughts about them and what you hope to see from the rest of Darling in the Franxx. Tell me all your thoughts about episode 16. Let's start a discussion, guys. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, stay damn down, baby.